guys, this is Ieuan Walters from Team Parati. I just wanted to go over a few of the cards that have been announced for the upcoming expansion, Whispers of the Old Gods. First up, we've got Cthulhu, which is a 10 mana 6/6 battlecry, deal damage equal to this minion's attack, randomly split across all enemies. Now, immediately, that's not too great. However, there are a lot of cards, such as Beckoner of Evil, Twilight Elder, and there'll be a few others, that actually buff the attack of this minion. So basically, you can get maybe a 10-10 Cthulhu or a 12-12, maybe even a 20-20 if you're lucky enough. And that makes this card really good. Because imagine doing 20 damage across everything for 10 mana. That's a pretty good spell, don't you think? That could win you a game. And also if you get a 20-20 minion on the board as well, it's pretty good. And this is what Blizzard is really pushing with these synergy cards to try and get a new sort of archetype deck going. I'm not sure if this deck will work too well at top level. I'm sure it'll be pretty good. A lot of pros already have said they reckon Rogue's going to be the best for this deck. I honestly think you could maybe make a Reno deck out of it. They said there's going to be like 12 cards that are going to synergize with it, so you get one of those, and it sort of works with it. I reckon maybe a Reno Cthulhu deck could work, or something along those lines. I think this card could actually see some potential to make some new decks. Next up, we have Validated Doomsayer, which is a 5 mana 0/7 at the start of your turn. Set this minion's attack to 7. Well, this is a nice turn on the old Doomsayer, which is just a 0/7, and he's looking quite smug in himself. But this card, I don't think it's going to see any proper competitive play. A 5 mana 7/7 I don't think is too great. There's that Druid card, Druid of the Fang, which is one, I suppose you have to make a deck around that, but it does dodge BGH, which we're probably going to see a nerf to anyway when Whispers of the Old Gods becomes released. But overall, I think a 5 mana 0/7 isn't really worth the risk. If your opponent has a board, this just dies without affecting the board at all. And that's just not good enough. I think it's okay, it's probably good in arena, but in competitive play it's not as good. Corrupted Healbot, a 5 mana 6/6 Death Rattle, restore 8 health to your enemy hero. Now, it's a nice turn on the old favourite Antique Healbot, which will be going out of standard play, coming Whispers of the Old Gods, because it was a part of GVG. Yes, Goblins vs. Gnomes. So, a 5 mana 6/6, is that worth healing your enemy hero? Once again, I don't think it's enough for the stats for the drawback, really. It's a decent card, but there's already a 5 mana 5/6 Pit Fighter that sees no play whatsoever. So I think adding one attack to that isn't really good enough. I suppose there's been some talk about it being helped with Organized Soul Priest, but I don't think a deck like that would work. A 5 mana 6/6 in Priest, especially with all the mechs being flown out, so there's no actual synergy anymore. I don't think it's good enough for competitive play. Great card in Arena though. Next up is one of the Cthulhu synergy cards, Beckoner of Evil. Battlecry, give your Cthulhu +2/+2 wherever it is. So that could be in your deck, in your hand, on the board. And overall, this is a very solidly statted card as a 2 mana 2/3. There's no actual drawback for the effect that it gives you. So I think I like that about these Cthulhu decks, because these Cthulhu decks are actually going to have solid minions to play around, sort of like a mid-range deck, and then eventually, when you actually get the big man himself out, you can just win the game. So I think Beckoner of Evil's definitely going to see play in Cthulhu decks, but once again, 2 mana 2/3 isn't going to see anything outside of that. Next up, we have a Polluted Hoarder, 4 mana 4/2 Death Rattle, draw a card. This is a take on the Loot Hoarder, and he's just basically been doubled in stats. Double the mana, double the attack, double the health. Overall, I don't think this card's really good enough for competitive play, because it's just not really competitively statted enough. 2 health is quite easy to deal with. At 4 mana, that could be dealt with a 3 mana, even a 2 mana card. If they've still got a 1 mana card, it could get killed by a Leper Gnome or something like that. So in competitive play, I don't think it's good enough unless decks are really desperate for draw, but even then I think there's better alternatives out there. Next up, we have Twilight Elder, a 3 mana 3/4. At the end of your turn, give your Cthulhu +1/+1, wherever it is again. So I think this card, once again, is going to be seen in very in Cthulhu decks. Obviously, a 3 mana 3/4 I think is a very good statted card. And yeah, I think it's definitely solid. Unfortunately, these cards won't be seen in Arena. But competitively, I would definitely want to run 2 of those in my Cthulhu decks, because you're not getting any punishment for the stats that you're, or for the effect that you're given. And if this manages to stay on the turn 2 or 3 turns, that's plus 2 or 3 attack and health to your Cthulhu. So win-win. Next up is a Stand Against Darkness, a 5-mana paladin card that reads, summon 5/1/1 Silverhand Recruits. Well, this is quite clearly some form of replacement to Muster for Battle, that little OP card in Paladin that summons 3/1/1 Silverhand Recruits and gives you a Light's Justice. So yeah, this card essentially isn't good enough, really. 5 mana for 5/1/1s. There's been cards like that. There's the Druid card Dark Whispers, which has seen no play whatsoever apart from that one token Druid that existed once upon a time. This card is just too slow and too underwhelming to see play in anywhere like this. It won't. It's not very good. Next up, we have a 7 mana 6/6 legendary Hogger the Doom of Elwyn, a corrupted Hogger clone for the Whispers of the Old Gods, which reads, whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/2 null with Taunt. So it's pretty similar to Hogger, except it costs 1 more. Oh no, this can definitely be seen as a Death Rattle, summon a 2/2 null, in probably a worst case scenario, so which is kind of an 8/8 stats for 7, which still isn't really good enough. So the problem with this card is you can't really control how many times it takes damage unless you're running a silly deck with Whirlwinds or something like that. So basically, you're never really going to get like 6 nulls or 5 or 4 nulls. At best, on a usual occasion, if you actually played this card and it doesn't get removed by a spell, it's going to be 1 or 2. It's just not really good enough for what you're getting. An 8/8 for 7 isn't really good enough. It doesn't really do enough to the board, I don't think. Next up, we have Giant Sandworm, an 8 mana 8/8, which reads, if this minion attacks another minion and kills it, it can attack again. Right, in Hunter, personally, I don't think this card's... I think this card's okay, to be honest. I think this card's okay. In Arena, it's insane, but in competitive play, could it see play? Not unless another Hunter deck's built, because honestly, I think this card's okay. It's a trading machine, and at the moment, Hunters don't want to trade. So this card sees no use in Hunter at the moment whatsoever. But if a new Hunter archetype comes around that's a lot more control based about trading, I think this card might see play. I don't think it's too bad at all. Next up, we have Eater of Secrets, a 4 mana 2/4 battlecry. Destroy all enemy secrets. Gain +1/+1 for each. Well, here we have the ultimate counter to Secret Paladin. However, we're probably going to see that slide out of the meta as come Whispers of the Old Gods, because they're losing so many cards. But I think this card is for if you're really triggered by secrets. I think you've lost about 3 or 4 games in a row against Freeze Mage, and you're right, I'm putting Eater of Secrets in my deck. I don't think this card's good enough to see competitive play. The stats are just not good enough for all those other times you're not facing secret decks. I feel you might see some sight of this in Wild, where there still are secret paladins or something, but realistically, I don't see this seeing much play. Next up, we have another Cthulhu card, which is a Claxi Amber Weaver, a Druid 4 mana 4/5, which reads Battlecry. If your Cthulhu has at least 10 attack, gain +5 health. Now then, a 4 mana 4/5 is a Jilwyn Yeti. It's pretty good. That's definitely competitive stats. And the possibility of it being a 4 mana 4/10 is insane. Like, if you imagine like a Handlock once upon a time, they would tap and tap and tap, and just to get a 4/10 on the board in turn 4, and they would sacrifice their first 2 turns for that to be okay. Obviously, they'd still want to play Mountain Giant as well, but yeah, that's basically what they worked for. So having this in Druid and being able to get this off is absolutely insane. So if this could see the start of a encouragement for a Cthulhu Druid deck, this card is definitely seeing play. Otherwise, there's going to be better cards than a 4 mana 4/5, but it's very good for what it is. If Cthulhu is in Druid, this card is as well. Next up we have Ancient Shield Bearer, which is a warrior card, 7 mana 6/6. If your Cthulhu has at least 10 attack, gain 10 armor. Well, this is a pretty solid replacement for the old Shield Maiden, however you need to have a Cthulhu in your deck. Personally, I think Control Warrior could see a very competitive Cthulhu deck. Out of all the decks that are out there, I think it's got time to play such a card. So I think a Cthulhu Warrior deck could definitely see play, and this will definitely be in it. I think this card is strong enough to encourage people to make Cthulhu Warrior decks. I reckon we'll be seeing quite a bit of this in the future. Next up we have one of the forbidden cards, Forbidden Flame, which is a 0 mana mage card. Spend all your mana, deal that much damage to a minion. Now then, I think this card is good. I'm not sure how good, we'll see in time. But, for example, you draw this off the top of your deck, and when late in the game, it's a Pyroblast, which is pretty good. So, yeah, I like this card a lot. I think we will be seeing it in Tempo Mage, mainly because it's versatile. I like the versatility in Tempo Mage, because a lot of the time they're drawing a lot, and then they're drawing off the top of the deck without a lot there. So whenever you draw this card, it's always a pretty good card. So I like this card a lot. I think we will be seeing this in, or at least trying to see it in some Tempo Mages. I like this card a lot, definitely. Next up we have another forbidden card, Forbidden Shaping, which is a priest card, 0 mana, spend all your mana, summon a random minion that costs that much. Right, okay, as we've seen in previous Tavern Brawls, random minions for a certain mana cost aren't that brilliant, to be honest, especially since a lot of cards, especially around the 5 mana or something, there's a lot of battle cry minions and such, so I don't think this is as good as Forbidden Flame or the upcoming Paladin Forbidden card. I think this is probably the worst of the lot. I think in Priest I don't think this will see play, because I don't think Priest need a card like that. I think if they wanted to play something of a certain mana, they would just play it. So I don't think this card's too clever, to be honest. Next up we have another Cthulhu card, a 4 mana 4/2 Divine Shield, Cthulhu's Chosen, which is give your Cthulhu +2/+2 wherever it is. Some people have been saying this is a sort of replacement for Shredder. I'm not sure it's that good, but I think in a best case scenario you can look at it as a 4 mana 4/2 Death Rattle Summoner 4/2. And now if that is the case, this card is pretty broken. This card is a new Shredder. However, with a lot of decks recently, especially with Paladins and such, it's probably going to be something like a 4 mana 4/3 or a 4 mana 4/4 you could look at it as well. But if the deck meta slows down, I think this card's pretty good, I'll be honest. I think Divine Shield, especially with a slower meta, is going to be a lot more useful, as long as you're not playing against mages, or something that can just ping something. So, but I think this card's very good. I think in Cthulhu decks, you'll definitely think about putting this in your deck. Next up, we have the first class legendary announced for this set, which is Harold Valage, which is a 6 mana 5/5 battle cry. Summon a 1/1 copy of each of your other minions. Now then, this has seen a bit of talk with like, oh, if I have Ysera and Thaurissan and Ragnaros on the field, then it's going to be really good. But how often is that happening when you're a priest? I think this card could be okay, because let's say you have 2 minions on the field that are just battle cry, they have no effect. That's basically a mini Doctor Boom. It's a 6 mana 5/5 with 2 1/1s. It's not good enough, but it's okay. It's okay. But if you can actually make a priest deck with these sort of effect cards, this card has serious potential to be broken, is the thing. But from what I can see, it's not going to be. But I look forward to seeing if someone can make that, or I'll try it myself. Next up, we have Infested Tauren, a 4 mana 2/3 Taunt Death Rattle Summoner 2/2 Slime. Okay, from the cards that have been announced so far, this card I think is by far the worst. This card sucks. This card sucks so hard. A 4 mana 2/3 Taunt is terrible. That's absolutely terrible. That's like a 2 mana worth of stats and you get a 2/2 slime, which is about a 1 mana worth of stats. A good 1 mana, a bad 2 mana. So it's about a, let's say it's worth 3.5 mana, 3 mana. This card is just not good enough. It's bad in arena, it's bad in competitive play. You will never see this card again. Next up we have a Forbidden Healing, the Paladin, a 0 mana card that reads spend all your mana, heal for double the mana you spent. Now it's another one of those versatile forbidden cards, and if you top deck this, it's a 10 mana heal for 20 damage, which is pretty good. And other times when you draw it and you need to spend other mana, it's you heal for 6 or 10 or 12. It's okay. But when you're spending that much mana doing nothing but healing, I think there might be a problem. Your opponent might just get another chance to overload the board again, just flood it, and then you're taking too much damage since you didn't play an actual minion to actually try and stop their board. So, could this card see play? Maybe. I think this card will definitely see play in something like Murloc Paladin, but in a mid-range or more tempo-based mid-range Paladin, I don't think this is going to see play whatsoever. Okay, well that's all the cards that have been released so far, so I will be following up with this when new cards have been announced, but those are all the ones that have been announced so far, so thank you very much for watching this. I'll get back to you very soon.